Welcome to Charts Today. My name is David Linton, and today's edition for Monday, the 3rd of December, comes to you from London. And the markets are all rising quite sharply today off the back of a standoff between the Chinese and US authorities on trade wars. And so, with potential escalation delayed, stocks have been really jumping on that. So we'll take a look. The dollar is down 0.5%. So we've seen as sentiment improves, the dollar, the safe haven, just weakens a bit. So we're short-term bearish, although we do still have a plethora of upside targets here for the dollar. So this might be short-lived. We might be just hitting some long-term resistance on the dollar here. Looking at the euro looking stronger this morning against that weaker dollar, and Japanese yen. Dollar weakening here as well. Sterling sitting at 128, rising on that weaker dollar as well. And against the euro, we're seeing again sterling is just starting to gain some strength, but still short-term bearish. Against the Swiss franc, sterling is looking better. Against the Aussie dollar, looking weaker. Bitcoin is down a further 3.7%, taking us back into bearish territory short term. Bearish on all three time frames. It's very hard to see any upside for Bitcoin at the moment. The US stock market, the S&P closed up on Friday, as did the Nasdaq. We're now seeing these markets back into short-term bullish trends. We're seeing that with all the 60-minute cloud charts, and even on the Russell 2000, which has lagged a bit. But the key thing is the futures, and the S&P future is up 2% this morning, and the Nasdaq E-mini is up 2.6%. So this is really starting to look like the US markets are in recovery mode. It will take a lot, of course, to be medium-term bullish, but for the moment, it looks like we're going to see strong rises in the UK. The futures also in the UK up strongly, and looking at the FTSE 100 index up 1.5% this morning, so a very strong rise there as well. So that's proving quite key. Looking at mid caps, we're seeing also strong here, and the DAX also looking stronger. CAC Current is up 2% this morning, so that's looking strong. And in Japan, we're up 1.3%. Hang Seng was up 2.5% overnight, and the Chinese market up 2.5% as well. Not enough to take these markets into bullish territory, but big jumps all the same. In India, little change there on the Sensex, and in Aussie, up 1.8% on the stock market there. Brent crude is up nearly 5% with that improved sentiment. So a big jump there. WTI up 5% as well. So oil really finding the lagging line, just bouncing on the weekly cloud there. So this will be very interesting to see whether we can hold this low. US nat gas sitting at $4.50, so really pretty much holding on to its gains, and looking like we're building a bit of an ascending triangle here. So US nat gas could really do something quite significant. Gold sitting at $12.30 on that weaker dollar. We're up quite sharply, activating the upside target at 12.57. That's 2% higher. Gold turning a corner here, so looking pretty strong. Silver similarly, not quite as good on the medium-term chart, but short-term is up quite sharply. US Treasury yields also just starting to cross that short-term bearish trend as well, and bonds in Germany down this morning. Taking a look at the markets, that was that data all coming to you from Thomson Reuters Icon if you're a private user, Metastock Zenith, and if we look at the data coming from Yahoo, we see this sea of green here, the Nikkei 225 up 1%, and we are just seeing across the board. It's very rare that you see all the markets rising like this, so we are just seeing quite big gains, and that's showing through. On Friday, we saw Apple still struggling a little bit. Microsoft now passing Apple as the world's largest company. Amazon looking stronger again, starting to recover there, and their relative trend against the Dow actually just improving. Google have been in the doldrums most of this year, but again starting to just show some signs of improvement. But the real story really in tech on Friday was that Microsoft actually passed Apple. and in terms of market cap to become the world's biggest company, and are still medium-term bullish, have broken out of their relative trend here. So Microsoft looking pretty strong. And if we look at other stocks, Netflix were down just 1% on Friday, and Tesla were also up 2.7%. Tesla are actually a bright spot amongst tech at the moment, so quite interesting. Of course, what we're seeing from the futures on Nasdaq today, all of these stocks are set to have big rises at the open this afternoon. Looking at the Aussie market, we see some pretty big stock rises. GrainCorp up 26%, Bellamy's Australia up 12%. A lot of these are big counter trend moves and downtrends. BlueScope also up. And if we look at the downside, St Barbara Limited down 8%. So we are still seeing some quite big falls. China, a sea of green, virtually nothing falling in that. In fact, no falls in the top 50 stocks in Shanghai. Hang Seng, we're seeing here again, only a handful of stocks really falling away. Some really big moves here. Sands China up 12%, for example, bucking the new, creating a new uptrend on the medium-term chart. In India, a little bit more mixed picture. India Bulls Housing up nearly 8%. Of course, having dived this year, so that's still very much a counter trend move. And Tokyo, we're seeing some quite big moves as well. Taking a look at London, we're just opening in London at the moment, so we're seeing the prices just coming in now on Yahoo. And we're seeing here some pretty big moves across the board. Glencore up 8% this morning. Rio Tinto up 5%. So Antofagasta and Everaz. So and Mondi. The top five stocks, all commodity stocks. So we're seeing some quite big moves there, and that's really taking the market higher. Looking at the other end of the scale, only a handful of stocks falling. So that's quite significant. And we see here, so AB Foods, for example, safe stocks, utilities down. So we're seeing National Grid, SSE Group down. So utilities looking weaker, but everything else is on the rise. A big, strong opening. Looking at the 250, we're seeing here Premier oil stocks on that 5% rise, of course, taking a real rise there. Mineral stocks again, CAS Minerals up very sharply. And if we take a look at the fallers, we see here we still do have some quite big moves. Granger, for example, and Stobbart Group being hit this morning. But on the whole, it's a pretty strong rise to the market. A lot of charts still in downtrends, and these rises won't change a lot. We need a sustained move off the low that we've seen this month, last month. And if we look at the Euro stocks, again, stocks in Europe opening much higher. In Germany, Siltronic Group up 8%, so we're seeing a lot of DAX stocks looking quite a lot stronger. Schaeffler also up 8%. So quite interesting there. On the downside in Europe, there are a handful of stocks down, but it's nearly all to the upside. So quite key there that we're seeing those rises. Still, quite a lot of stocks have broken their trends, and it will take a lot to recover those trends. A great start to the market today. The big question is this the bottom? Can we now recover and make new highs? Keep an eye on charts today for that call. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.